Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are going to completely dismantle everything you think you know about getting bigger and stronger at the gym. Because if you've been grinding away, chasing the burn, and waking up painfully sore in hopes of packing on muscle, well, you might actually be working against your own biology. We're going to flip the script on traditional fitness advice by looking directly at the biological mechanics of how muscle is actually built. So grab a seat because you're about to learn how to build muscle backwards. Here's the foundational truth we've just got to accept before we go any further. All that sweat, all that strain, all those heavy plates you're lifting, that whole phase is literally just the trigger. You do not build a single ounce of muscle while you're actively working out. The actual growth, the creation of new, more powerful fibers, that happens when you do absolutely nothing. And as we'll see, this recovery phase is exactly where most people are completely screwing up their progress.
Section 1. The gym doesn't build muscle. Okay, let's dive into this definition of hypertrophy, which is just the fancy word for muscle growth. When you train and the load is heavy enough, your brain sends a signal, motor neurons fire, and muscle fibers contract. But here's the real secret. When that fiber is under load, particularly as it's lengthening, it physically deforms. The fiber literally senses that physical tension, and it triggers this very specific molecular signal called MTC1. You can think of that signal basically like a foreman on a job site blowing a whistle, telling your body's construction crew to start building new, bigger protein.
Now, what's really interesting is how this completely shatters the old no pain, no gain myth. A 2025 review out of McMaster University, which, by the way, is one of the top sports science programs in the entire world, they definitively confirmed that your muscle does not need to be torn to grow. It simply needs to be loaded. That means it is the physical tension that does the work, not the microscopic damage that everyone is always so eager to flex about in the locker room.
Because of that, we arrive at a pretty harsh truth. That lingering soreness you've been chasing, it's literally just inflammation. It's simply your body doing a cleanup operation. It is not a growth signal. Think about marathon runners for a second. Their legs are completely destroyed and terribly sore for a full week after a race, but they don't come back with massive bodybuilder-style legs, right? If you're constantly chasing soreness, you're really just chasing an inflammation cleanup crew, not a muscle construction crew.
Section 2. The 48-hour growth window. Let's actually walk through this timeline step by step, because biological timing is huge here. At hour 0, your workout begins, and you trigger that MTC1 signal. The actual building process, which is known as muscle protein synthesis, steadily climbs until it peaks around 24 hours after your session. But look what happens at hour 48. By the time 2 days have passed, the building process is essentially back to baseline. It's completely finished. The window's closed, and the construction crew has completely packed up and gone home. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive flaw in the traditional bro split, where you train chest on Monday, back on Tuesday, and don't touch them again for a full week. If you train a muscle once a week, it grows for exactly 2 days, and then it just sits there doing absolutely nothing for 5 days. That soreness you still feel on Thursday, that's just the cleanup crew. The builders are long gone. So training a muscle twice a week isn't just some fun option. It's the literal difference between your muscle spending 2 days growing or 4 days growing.
Section 3. The power of lowering.
40%. That is a wild number to wrap your head around. Your muscles can actually handle about 40% more force on the way down than they can on the way up. Think about that for a second. You are significantly stronger when you're lowering a weight than when you're actually lifting it.
But most people treat the eccentric phase, the lowering part of a pull-up or a bicep curl, like it's just a rushed commute between reps. They drop down super fast, pull up hard, and count the rep. But the rep you just counted isn't even the part your muscles cared about most. The lowering phase is where the physical tension is at its absolute highest. And remember that MTC1 growth signal we talked about earlier? The eccentric phase is exactly where that signal gets hit the absolute hardest.
So let's see how this translates into real actionable advice. Slow the lowering down to a minimum of 3 seconds. Literally, just make this one single change to your routine. Stop rushing the descent. If you force your muscles to handle that tension for 3 steady seconds on the way down, your gains are going to go absolutely bananas. You're finally giving your body the maximum tension it actually requires to grow.
Section 4. Sleep and raw materials. Because look, MTC1 can signal all it wants, and the tension can be absolutely perfect. But without rest, that construction crew has literally nothing to build with. Here's a very harsh reality check for you. An 18% drop in muscle protein synthesis. Now that doesn't happen after a week of bad sleep. That happens after just one single bad night of sleep. One night.
You could have the most perfect workout in the world, but if you go home and scroll on your phone until 1 a.m., you are immediately self-sabotaging nearly a fifth of your body's ability to build muscle. So the crucial point here is that bad sleep actively ages your hormonal profile. If you string together just 1 week of sleeping only 5 hours a night, your testosterone drops by 10 to 15%. To put that into perspective, that is the exact same hormonal decline you would expect to see from aging an entire decade. Let that sink in. You are effectively aging yourself 10 years in a single week, absolutely destroying your potential gains. There's this really fascinating study that proves exactly how critical this is. Researchers took 2 groups of people and put them on the exact same diet, with the exact same calorie deficit. The only variable was that one group was sleep-deprived. The results? It's crazy. The sleep-deprived group lost 60% more muscle and 55% less fat. Same exact food, wildly different results. Sleep is non-negotiable, guys. It is half of the entire recovery equation.
The other half of that equation, of course, is nutrition. The molecular signal fires, but if your protein is off, nothing gets built. It's like you paid the crew but forgot to order the bricks. And the massive problem here is human error. Studies show that people blindly underestimate their food intake by up to 50%. You might think you're eating exactly enough protein, but the reality is you're probably just guessing, and your body cannot build muscle out of guesses. The raw materials simply aren't being delivered.
This is exactly why our source recommends using an app called MacroFactor to fix the whole calorie and protein tracking problem. Unlike other apps that just give you a static number and leave you hanging, MacroFactor tracks your food super easily through photo logging. You literally just snap a picture of your plate. But more importantly, it dynamically learns your unique metabolism based on how your body actually responds, and it adjusts your targets every single week. It builds a plan around you rather than forcing you to conform to some arbitrary calculator. If you want to check it out, you can grab a 14-day free trial using the promo code YELLOWDUDE.
Section 5. The Real Growth Protocol.
Let's pull all these unlearned myths and new biological truths together into 4 definitive steps you can take to the gym tomorrow. Step 1. Progressively load your muscles with increasing tension over time, not just doing more reps of the same easy weight. Step 2. Enforce a strict 3-second minimum on the eccentric lowering phase of every single rep. Step 3. Train your muscle groups twice a week to maximize that 48-hour growth window. And Step 4. Sleep a minimum of 7+ hours to give your body the testosterone and synthesis environment it needs. And remember, your soreness will probably peak around day 2 or 3, well after that 48-hour growth window has already slammed shut.
The main takeaway here is that muscles do not grow just because they hurt. They grow because you loaded them with tension, you fed them the right raw materials, and then you got out of the way to let the biological construction crew do its job. So, I'm going to leave you with this provocative question to rethink your entire approach. Next time you limp out of the gym, ask yourself, did I actually trigger growth, or did I just make myself sore?